Today's episode of the Total Soccer Show is sponsored by the magnificently dressed people at Mack Weldon. Visit mackweldon.com, MackWeldon.com, and use discount code TSS for Total Soccer Show and get a 20% discount. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who this season will be showing me noticeably less visible disrespect. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Well, I might not show you less, but it means I might get more cards for doing it.
Yes.
That's the issue. That's the issue that I'm facing.
Because we are here to preview the Premier League and there are new rules in place this season.
Yeah, there are. And if they're enforced, does it feel like there's going to be 8 million red cards in the first weekend?
It does.
Yeah, so...
Wait, are these Premier League specific rules or are these new FIFA rules?
I think... where I read them was in the Premier League preview, so I think they might just be Premier League specific.
Okay.
But we'll have referee consultant on soon, and he can clarify for us.
All right.
But in the meantime, I can tell you that those rule changes, amongst others, you get an automatic yellow for showing visible disrespect, as you said, running towards an official to contest a decision. I do frequently run at you across the desk, making any physical contact.
We edit those parts out.
Can't touch the official at all. So it used to be like that was an automatic red before, but I think it was sort of like shoving the ref. This is like when they like tap the ref on the shoulder to get his attention. It should be a yellow card. At least one player will get a yellow card when 2 or more surround the match official, and then if you show any aggression or abuse during one of those incidents, then it's a straight red.
And it's going to be first weekend of the season, which is coming up this Saturday. Yep. We'll know how, to the letter of the law, this is being enforced, or if this is just posturing. Right? This could be just referees like pumping their chest up and making themselves look big, or it could be for real.
Yeah, and it really goes one of two ways, because it's either they're going to like let it be slack in the first week, which means they're going to let it slack for the season, or they're really going to enforce it to kind of lay down the law.
Yeah.
In which case, we really might see a yellow card inside the first 5 minutes.
And the usual pattern is, if they are really enforcing it, the opening weekend and maybe the opening 2 weeks, there'll be crazy yellow cards and red cards everywhere. Then everybody readjusts like, oh, this is for real.
You got to calibrate.
You got to recalibrate, and then everything will be okay.
Well, we'll see how those 20 Premier League teams calibrate, because we're going to go through and talk about all of them.
We certainly are. So this is part 1 of our Premier League preview. We're going to do the first 10 teams alphabetically. The way we do this, we don't go through and say, well, this team's going to win the league and this team's going to finish 10th, because honestly, last season... Who previewed and said Leicester City were going to be Premier League champions?
Yeah, and it does tend to be sort of like, well, they've got good players and he probably is going to score some goals, so they'll finish 7th.
Yeah, like, it's a lot of guesswork.
It tends to be a lot of guesswork.
So what we do on the Total Soccer Show is a long-standing tradition now. We do our very specific predictions. We're going to go team by team, give a little background and give one very specific prediction for something that will happen with that team. All right, we've decided to go alphabetically. There was an internal debate here at the Total Soccer Show. I said Arsenal. Taylor said AFC Bournemouth, because you are, I'm going to say, pleasantly pedantic.
No, get out of here. What happened was we were in the car. We were trying to decide how we would do this. We said, okay, one of us will just take the first team and then we go from there.
Yeah.
We both just assumed it was Arsenal. We flipped a coin. It landed with me getting Arsenal. Then I went to pick my teams and I was like, wait, the first team listed in every single table is Bournemouth. It would be weird to switch it there. Table. Well, the 2 that I looked at. And those are the 2 that I used. If 100% of the 2 that I looked at said that, then 100% of them say that.
So you win. It's AFC Bournemouth first, and you go first. So, Taylor, Here we go. Let's preview AFC Bournemouth.
Let's do it. And Bournemouth, I think, this is why I like doing it the way we do it, to be honest, because I think it would be really easy just to say, Bournemouth, given who they are, given where they've come from, that like, oh, they're going to struggle to stay afloat. They're going to be in that relegation battle, and now, we'll see what they can do. And there's a lot more to them this season.
You can hear that preview elsewhere, I'm sure.
Yes. And there's a lot more to them this season because it seems like Eddie Howe has kind of gotten the backing of the board and has more confidence, and so now he can kind of...
With the board, like, please don't leave us for the England Cup.
Exactly.
And he was like, well, I'll think about it, but you got to do these things for me.
Exactly.
He had leverage.
Yeah, so, I mean, those things would include, I guess he's been after Lewis Cook, who's a 19-year-old central midfielder from Leeds for a while. They finally got him.
Okay.
They got Jordan Ibe from Liverpool for a club record £15 million. For Bournemouth, that's quite a bit of money.
How much? Say that again?
£15 million.
I've just realised all the prices in this preview are going to be off the charts,
yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a lot of ones that look like they are bargains,
Yep.
in my opinion, and then I realize they're club records.
Uh-huh.
That's actually a tradition for two of my first three teams. But then there's also like interesting signings just to keep an eye on. The one that I think is going to be most interesting, sorry American fans, but it's a gentleman by the name of Lys Mousset. Lys is how you spell that first name.
Not Emerson Hyndman?
No, not so much.
Tell me about. Well, I'm sure we'll get to Hyndman. We have to, right? But who's Louis Mousset?
Lys Mousset, Lys, is a French U20 striker signed from Le Havre for £5.4 million. Again, a decent amount of money for a guy who doesn't have that much of a history. That said, Le Havre, famous for Dimitri Payet, for Riyad Mahrez, and for Paul Pogba. Mm-hmm. So they're decent at developing youngsters. He had 14 goals last season in League Two. So
for Bob Bradley?
Yeah, I guess it would have been.
So Bob Bradley sold him.
I did not even put that together. Mm-hmm. Yes, that would have been the case. The issue, though, that you brought up already, though, is that inclusion of Emerson Hyndman. At least for us as American fans, didn't have a very good season last year for Fulham. Now has moved to Bournemouth. And I think there was some expectation he was going to do well, right? We both think,
well, some optimism.
Yeah, right? But it seems like Bournemouth are going to go with kind of the standard midfielders they've used, Andrew Sermon and Harry Arter. Then there are basically 4 to 5 people in front of Emerson Hyndman before he might get some opportunities.
How are you basing that hierarchy? Why have you put him at the bottom of that pile?
I read 3 different Bournemouth fan previews, and all of them were listing their depth chart. Yes.
Uh-oh.
And a lot of times he was kind of one of those, and then exciting new youngsters have come in. It wasn't he's a midfielder who's going to do this.
I think we forget because we're in the US, we obviously are tracking Emerson Hyndman. If you're a Bournemouth fan, he's just another young player who you probably don't know much about, and you're like, I've heard he's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll play 10 minutes this year.
Yep.
You don't care, right? We care more.
And that's my fear. So I'm going to say he will start fewer than 8 games and feature in fewer than 16 games.
Wow.
Total. Mm-hmm.
Fewer than 8 games and featuring fewer than 16 games.
Yes. I don't think he's going to play very much. And I think that might be even you could probably knock that down to 5 games. I'm really concerned he's not going to play that much. Now, that said, he is the type of player who is generally consistent. And so it might be that he gets one game, looks good, gets another game, and then maybe it continues. But it's about getting that first step that I think could be an issue.
I mean, he deliberately didn't qualify for the Olympics and everything, so he could have a good preseason.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, to be fair, Twitter user CJ Lutonen, we did put that call out for people's predictions for this season.
Yeah.
He says Emerson Hyndman will have more appearances than Bournemouth wins. So that could also be the case, but I guess Bournemouth fans would hope not.
Both these things could happen?
Yes, it's true. Yeah, so it could happen in a very bad way, or it could happen in a very good way. We shall see.
All right, up next, we have Arsenal. I'm previewing Arsenal. The big news is it's Arsene Wenger's final season, ?
Yep.
His contract is up at the end of the season, and the big question is, does he go out in a blaze of glory? Does he kind of whimper towards the end and then not renew? Or does it get all optimistic around about January and he signs again for another 3 or 4 years? So really the future of Arsenal is in the balance this season in terms of Wenger's Arsenal. Because when the next man comes in, it's going to be a whole different team. I am a little bit optimistic about Arsenal.
I was going to ask you what your gut feeling was.
My gut feeling is optimism because I was really impressed with the signing of El Neni last year, adding just a little bit of bite to the midfield. And he's had 6 months to settle in, which I think was a good idea. Plus, you add Granit Xhaka, who I think is a good both-ways midfielder. He adds something extra. I think that Arsenal central midfield is going to be strong. There haven't been any other signings, right? There was the almost Jamie Vardy signing. There was the Lacazette bid. And there was some dabbling with Higuain, I think, until Wenger saw the price tag and was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the decimal place in the right point there?
Well, I want to ask you about the transfers. Do you have any potential transfers coming in? Because I have one I would like to talk about.
No, I don't. What else is going on?
So the thing that I saw made Arsenal fans lose their minds, at least on social media, yesterday. It was either yesterday or this morning, was the day that Manchester United officially announced the signing of Paul Pogba. Arsenal officially announced that they were in talks with West Brom to sign Johnny Evans. And it was like, really? Is that really where we are?
Sorry, I heard
Is that where we are?
Well, Arsenal have a defensive crisis going on, right?
Yeah.
Mertesacker is injured. I think Gabriel got injured in a recent friendly. I think Koscielny is just isn't he sort of just a little bit behind because he was at the Euros?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on with Arsenal.
I think, and I have
so
to
Johnny
say,
Evans as a short-term signing is not such a bad idea.
I think it's an excellent signing to the point where I think if West Brom sell Johnny Evans, they get relegated. I really think he is. That's not even a joke. I think he is that important to that team because he does just so many intangible things, and he is that veteran presence. It's a really smart signing because they'll get him for probably less than some of the players we've already talked about.
It's not a smart move if you're Johnny Evans.
No, it's not.
Because you're the short-term guy, and then you're
Yep.
you're off.
You're either
when
sitting on the bench
everybody's back.
for like a year or two, or
Yeah.
you're sold to another lower league, like lower table Premier League team.
The thing that slightly worries me with Arsenal is it seems like they have a lot of players coming back late from international duty, right? Like
Right.
all those French players, Giroud, Koscielny, went deep into the Euros. Alexis Sanchez went all the way to winning Copa
Yep.
America. Aaron Ramsey went to the semi-finals with Wales. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't play in the semi-final, but he was part of the squad that went all the way there. I've got this feeling they're sort of like a team that they could do with the season being a couple of weeks later. But I think that's probably true for a lot of these Premier League teams. No one seems quite ready.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll talk about them maybe later on today's show, but Man City just signed their big expensive centre-back, like 5 days before the season kicks off?
Right.
No one's... everyone's like just
Yeah.
still putting their shoes on, and the starter's already got their starting pistol in the air ready to fire, you know?
Yeah, I would say it seems like there isn't one team in the league, except for maybe Arsenal, that like has their stuff really together. It seems like everyone is still really trying to figure it out
Well,
as
I mean,
the season gets close.
Arsenal are still linked with Lacazette, and there's a lot of signings
Yeah.
they're still trying to make. So
Yeah.
it's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Which is where my prediction comes
Okay,
in.
yeah.
So they failed to sign a new striker who will start, right? Olivier Giroud may not be ready for the start of the season, probably won't be at full fitness start of the season. Golden opportunity here for Theo Walcott, right?
Theo, thank you.
Last season, there was a lot of, for some teams, it was Giroud as the striker. For some teams, it was Walcott as the striker. I think Walcott's going to start the season, based on all the preseason stuff, as the central striker. And I think this is the year, this is my prediction, that Walcott outscores Giroud.
Ooh.
Walcott outscores Giroud to be Arsenal's leading scorer. It is time that Theo Walcott stepped up, made himself the centre forward that he's always said he's going to be. He's 27 now. It's going to be this season. He's going to have a good run at centre forward and bang in a load of goals.
Not to put you on the spot, do you know what the difference was last season, or can we just safely say that Giroud outscored Walcott?
Giroud was top scorer. I know
Okay,
that.
okay.
And Theo Walcott was
Yeah.
not. I think Giroud got 16 in the Premier League, 24 in all competitions. I remember reading that. I'm not looking at my notes here. I feel like Walcott got not as many. That's all I can say. Maybe 10. I'm not sure. But this is the year because he also like played on the wing some games.
Yeah.
Didn't start some games, played up front some games. So he's going to start as centre forward, start on fire, and he's going to keep it going from there.
See, I think if you made this prediction last season, which you might have, I'm not sure, it wouldn't have been as risky. But it seems like I've seen a lot of rumors linking Walcott with a move away, that people maybe are starting to lose faith in him, it seems, at Arsenal. So I think it's a
Right now,
risky shot by you.
Right now, he's the guy that's starting the season. And once you like start on a hot streak, everything changes.
Well, there we go.
In terms of Americans at Arsenal, Gideon Zalalem has not been loaned out at time of recording. So he was part of the preseason tour, and he said that after the preseason tour he would sit down with Wenger and they would decide, does he go out on loan or is he with the first team squad this year?
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a decision that they make.
Well,
yeah, I know what you mean.
You
but
phrased
yeah.
it very nicely,
Yeah.
put it that way. But once again, you've got like Mesut Ozil, I think, is not quite ready to start the season. Aaron Ramsey has been playing pre-season. Alexis Sanchez, the same as I mentioned. Santi Cazorla, I'm not sure is fully fit. Again, there's opportunity for Zelalem at the start of the season to maybe get some minutes in there.
There we go. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll also keep an eye on Burnley up next. I'm just going all England managers at this point. In fact, I think I'm going to keep that tradition going for quite some time in part one.
You do have the less glamorous side of the alphabet.
Says you. But yeah, I think so.
Tell me all about Burnley.
Yeah. Burnley won the championship last season and are weaker now. Much weaker than they were when they won the championship.
No.
Yes,
How?
they are. Well, first of all, they've only signed 2 players at this point. They've signed a reserve goalkeeper, Nick Pope, and Johan Berg Gudmundsson, famous for playing for Iceland this summer. He's a winger.
All right.
Both of them were playing for Charlton, who were relegated from the championship. Not a great start. In the meantime, however, the player that really a lot of people say was like the driving force behind that Burnley team last season was Joey Barton, who has departed for Rangers, partially because I believe it was the director of recruitment for Burnley has moved to Rangers. And so they've lost this player who basically was the key figure in their midfield, and they have not replaced him.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so it's not great. And then the other issue with Burnley, if you go and look at their ownership structure, they're owned by 2 gentlemen with a combined net worth of £55 million. Compare that to like Vincent Tan.
That
I believe.
sounds like a lot, but it's actually
Not
is it?
at all.
Right.
Yeah, like Vincent Tan is worth like 1.5 billion, Fulham 4.5 billion. So you start to see that they don't have that much money. So it becomes about like the promotion payoffs, about the TV contracts, and about selling players. That's where they get their money. So they're really not able to do a lot of splashing in the transfer market. So it's basically going to be the team that they have. They'll bring in a few kind of bargain buys and a few maybe loan moves, but it's not going to be anything really glamorous. And so they're kind of where they are is where they're going to be.
So could they be doing this sort of, fourth place? Will they be doing this third place, right? Alphabetically. Will they be doing the thing West Brom did for a few years back in the day, where they just get promoted to the Premier League, don't spend a fortune trying to stay there, you just take all the money that is one season in the Premier League, then all the parachute payments, and just bank it.
Yeah. Basically, I think that's their plan, because they're
don't
using
sell
that
anyone,
money.
Don't buy anyone, just bank the money, keep us going.
But develop your infrastructure, develop facilities. That's what they're doing. I think they're building a new training ground, so that's what they're putting a lot of their money towards. And so I think it's this idea that, we can keep bouncing back and forth. We stay near the top of the championship or stay in the bottom of the Premier League. Either way, we're making that money and we're getting decent income.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean, it's dismissively called a yo-yo club when you do that, except with the money that's in the Premier League now, it's as if when you play with your yo-yo, every time you do your yo-yo up and down, like £100 million appears.
Exactly.
Professional yo-yo club.
So it's not all gloom and doom, though. They do have last season's championship player of the season and the top scorer from the championship, Andre Gray. He scored 23 goals, 8 assists last season. He will partner, your favorite and mine, Sam Vokes, is likely going to be his strike partner up top. Played for Wales this summer. Scored the winner against Belgium. How dare you look at me dismissively?
It's because it's another guy that Wolves let go.
Yes. Oh, I forgot about that. Sorry, buddy.
Yes.
But I think the prediction that I'm going to go with, the thing to watch for, is Sean Dyche become this season's media darling.
Okay.
Yes. So there are many reasons for this.
Sean Dyche, the manager of
Burnley. Of Burnley. First is because I think he's probably going to be linked with at least a couple clubs. I have specifically 2 clubs. I think he will be linked with a couple different vacancies as the season progresses. I think he will turn them down because it seems like he has kind of built a home at Burnley. And he...
I was saying there'll be stories about like Dyche sticks with Burnley despite this mind-blowing offer from X club.
Because there will be some mid-table club.
Barcelona, we're talking
about. Yes, absolutely. But then on top of that, I think he'll... As he was when they were relegated last time, Sean Dyche is kind of a sympathetic figure. It's sort of seen as, he's doing the best with what he has. And it's not like, he can't get these guys performing. He's underperforming. A new manager could do better. So I think he kind of gets a little bit soft treatment at times. But it's also because he is charismatic. There's the great YouTube video of him answering a journalist's phone. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
It's like the recording device. He's using his phone, and the phone rings, and you just answer it. And he's like, "Hey, what's up? Like, you're interrupting my press conference. What can I do for you?" And he's like, "Oh, you going out later? You gonna have some beers? All right." like it's just a conversation. But I loved that a Reddit user described him as a voice that sounds like Tom Waits strangling a cement mixer, and that's about how he sounds. So for all those reasons, I think you're just going to hear a lot of like
Tom Waits' third album.
Could be. I think Sean Dyche featured on that album too. So I think for all those reasons, he will be the one that gets a lot of very positive media attention this season.
Tango Till It Pours. That's the name of the song.
Okay. I will take your word for
That's
it.
That's a pretty good Tom Waits joke.
Yes, and if you want more Tom Waits talk, you should watch the YouTube video that supposedly, theoretically, maybe conspiratorially inspired Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, because they sound identical. It's real creepy.
Yeah.
It's real creepy.
Okay,
so Heath Ledger, the Joker, and Burnley. Done.
Your Burnley prediction again?
Sean Dyche will be this season's media darling.
Lovely. All right, so moving on to Chelsea. Again, I do have the more glamorous side of the alphabet in part 1 of this Premier League preview show. It's all about new manager Antonio Conte. I have seen so many people talking about how Chelsea are going to play a 3-5-2 because Antonio Conte plays a 3-5-2. I fell into this trap myself early on, but I started looking at all the preseason games. Chelsea have played a weird 4-2-4 and a 4-3-3. There has been no 3-5-2, or at least not a consistent 3-5-2 in preseason.
Yet. It's the brilliance of Conte. He's going to spring in on the last minute. Yeah.
But he has basically been talking about how I pick the formation and the style and the strategy to suit the players I have. When I'm at Juventus, I have Chiellini, and Bonucci, and Barzagli. I play a back three, right? It doesn't mean that you have to do that everywhere you go. And I believe when he was at Bari, he played this 4-2-4 formation.
And I know that Roman Abramovich is not a sympathetic figure by any means, but you have to wonder if there was a moment when he was like, all right, I'll get my checkbook out. Like, how much do you want for players? And he's like, no, I'll figure it out. It's like, what? I'm confused now. Well, maybe splash a little bit on that one midfielder.
This isn't how it normally goes.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I can get you Shevchenko and Torres again. Conte's like, no. I'm good.
Hard pass, I think.
So what I think is going to happen is Chelsea are going to have an incredible defensive midfield. So you remember how he got great things out of Daniele De Rossi at the Euros, for example. He already had Matic, right, as a defensive midfielder at Chelsea. Didn't have his best season last season, but we know what Matic is capable of. And joining him is the £35 million defensive midfielder N'Golo Kanté.
Yep.
Led the Premier League, I believe, in tackles and interceptions last season. And then, even more importantly, did exciting things with the ball when he got it. So I've been watching some Chelsea pre-season, and I saw in a 4-3-3, they had two defensive midfielders, Kanté and Matic, next to each other. My prediction is that Chelsea's defence, Chelsea's back four, will be the best protected defence in all of the Premier League next season.
Is there a way to monitor that, you think? Or is it just sort of, it will be evident?
You will catch John Terry sleeping during a game and no one will even have to worry about it.
I feel like we're going back to the initial time we did specific predictions where you said someone that would have to retire after, like, they got megged by a Richmond kicker in preseason. I was like, again.
It was Mile Jeden.
Yeah, and I was like, again, these are actual predictions. Like, so you're saying John Terry's going to fall asleep on the field?
Terry and Cahill will be caught sleeping.
Gotcha. Okay. And not in the usual bad way. Gotcha.
Not in the usual bad way. One American note, Matt Miazga, part of the first team squad still, but no one really is expecting him to play much of a role so far. There's a bid in right now for Koulibaly, the Napoli centre-back. So Chelsea will be adding to their expensive defenders, and that pushes Miazga a little further, down the pecking order.
So you think loan move?
I hope so. Yeah. I know that when Miazga went to Chelsea from New York Red Bulls, the agreement was he would spend the rest of the calendar year, or the rest of the season, like 6 months, with the first team. Because for someone like Miazga, it is important to be with a Premier League first team and train with them for half a season or so. But at this point, he's had that experience. Now it's about playing some first team football.
This makes sense.
One other guy worth talking about, this is like my little bonus prediction, Eden Hazard. Remember Eden Hazard? How he used to be
I'm familiar with that
Premier
name.
League Player of the Year, and then he was awful last season. He was like sort of disinterested in doing the defensive work Mourinho asked him to do, more interested in possibly getting himself a move to Real Madrid or Barcelona. I think Eden Hazard is back in contention for Player of the Year after this season. We'll be reminded how good he is playing under Antonio Conte.
All right. Alrighty. Well, let's move right along. Sticking with glamorous clubs, Crystal Palace. Third straight English manager for me, and I like it. And I'm going to stick on the England train. I'm going to say that Andros Townsend, prediction straight off the bat, will feature in at least one list of the best buys of the season, despite being Crystal Palace's record transfer. At this point.
How much they pay for him?
£13.5 million. All
right.
For a 25-year-old winger who's good at set pieces, who can play on either side of the field, I think that's a decent buy.
I'm trying to track Andros Townsend. So he was at Spurs, then went to Newcastle. Yep. Newcastle got relegated, then Crystal Palace picked him up.
This is true.
Okay.
So now you've got Andros Townsend on one side, Wilfried Zaha on the other. Ooh. So you've got a lot of attacking talent in there. The issue, and then you've got lots of other talented players. So again, I think Crystal Palace are one that a lot of people are lumping in that relegation zone because they have one noticeable area of weakness. Outside of that, I think they're much stronger than people think.
What's the noticeable area of weakness?
Forwards. Can you name me a Crystal Palace forward? Because I would be surprised if you could.
What if there's a player with three names? It's almost Christian Benteke.
That's the one. So yeah, my bonus.
They put in massive bids for Benteke.
Yes, my bonus prediction was either Christian Benteke or Saido Berahino will be Palace's top goal scorer this season. But I'm going to lean towards Christian Benteke.
Neither of them play for Crystal Palace right now.
No, their current options right now are Connor Wickham, who's injury prone, Fraser Campbell, Kwesi Appiah, who's a 25-year-old Ghanaian who made 0 appearances last season, and Suli Kakai, who had 7 goals last season for Shrewsbury Town. So not a lot of firepower. But then you look at the midfield, it's Zaha, as I mentioned, it's Cabaye, it's Jednak, it's Joe Ledley. Yannick Bolasie is probably moving to Everton, so he doesn't count.
I was wondering why you hadn't mentioned Bolasie.
Oh, yeah, because he is very much, it seems, on the move. The story just before we started recording was that Palace had, quote, reluctantly accepted an offer, I think it was, from Everton.
It's a great phrase.
Yes, and then the final little bit that's worth noting is that they started Wayne Hennessy last season, did Crystal Palace.
Another former Wolves goalkeeper.
And it seems like maybe Alan Pardew has had enough of him, so they put in a bid, and it was accepted for Steve Mandanda, who's the second choice for France, for £1.4 million. Yeah. 9 seasons at Marseille, and it seems like maybe he is going to be the one to start. So they've kind of strengthened in a few different positions. Expect them to strengthen up top, and expect Andros Townsend to be on that best buy list because I think he's going to have a very good season.
Andros Townsend is the man who almost made the final England roster, and a lot of people argued will be lacking proper width if we don't take Andros Townsend, because he's a good old-fashioned out-and-out winger. He likes to cut inside, right? But he starts wide at least. England's Euro 2016 campaign could have been very different if, say, Townsend had gone instead of Jack Wilshere, for example, just to pick an underperforming name at random. I like this Benteke move, though. I know it hasn't happened yet, but I really think after a rough season at Liverpool, this is perfect for Benteke to be the absolute undisputed star striker, go-to, firing crosses in for Benteke. I think it could really work for him.
I like it. I also want to say, while we're on the topic, because one player you didn't talk about with Chelsea was is it Michy Batshuayi? Is that how you pronounce his name?
The new striker they've signed, yeah.
So there's some speculation that it was an agreement that Palace had to put in a bid for him to drive up his price so that Chelsea would have to pay more.
Why would that be an agreement?
Because in order for them to get Steve Mandanda at a discounted rate. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that's a theory doing the rounds.
Where did you read this? Isn't that all kinds of illegal?
I think so. But it was one of those talked about as an open secret, as though everybody knew it. That was the casualness with which it was being discussed on a message board. So not sure what to make of that.
To go back to Batshuayi, I think two-man strike force at Chelsea. It could be Costa and Batshuayi. Could be kind of exciting. I would expect Batshuayi to have a little bit of a slow start and come under some pressure, but eventually come good.
There we are.
Based on what we saw at the Euros.
So we've got some more previewing to do. But first, Mr. Grove, we have a sponsor today.
We do. Today's sponsor is Mack Weldon. Mack Weldon, maker of high-quality, highly comfortable men's clothing.
Yes, sir. They make shirts, hoodies, underwear, socks, and they've got that silver line, the antimicrobial technology that keeps you from stinking things up.
So Mack Weldon is a long-term sponsor of the Total Soccer Show. They're with us all through the summer, and they're joining us again for the start of the Premier League. We're very happy to have them. I wanted to ask, if Mack Weldon was a soccer player, which Premier League team would Mack Weldon play for?
Well, I have some thoughts, my friend.
Okay.
So we did this question previously with which Euro team would he play for, I believe it was, and I established that he would be Welsh.
Okay.
So I'm sticking with that. So I'm saying he's a Welsh midfielder for Arsenal. That's where I'm going with this one.
So is he Aaron Ramsey, or is he a bit different?
He's a little bit different. I'm going to say because he fits in because, first of all, Arsenal last season were the team that took the most selfies in all of the Premier League. So I feel like it's going to be an opportunity for him to wear his own equipment. So he can wear his underwear and take a selfie in the locker room, wear his T-shirt, wear his polo so he looks a little bit more formal. So he's got that going on. But the big one is that for some reason I was looking at the jerseys, the new uniforms for this season, and Spurs, all of their uniforms are trimmed in gold. And we know Mack Weldon's all about silver. So it seems like he's got to be the opposite of Spurs. So that's what I'm saying. He's fitting in an Arsenal. So I'm going to say he's like that kind of roguish, tough-tackling midfielder who can get you the odd goal here and there.
Lovely. All right, for me, when I think of Mack Weldon, the soccer player, Mack Weldon is American. It's a very American name, right? Mack Weldon, right? I also think it's what English people would think of as a very American name.
Yes.
Right? So you're a high-profile American player. There's only one English club you've got to think about, and it's Everton. It's where Tim Howard spent all those years. It's where Landon Donovan went and actually played kind of well twice.
Fulham just slowly raised its hand and then hung its head in shame. Yeah.
Right, well, do that in the Championship. So I'm seeing Mack Weldon at Everton. Specifically, I'm seeing Mack Weldon, the player, wearing the new Mack Weldon Vespa polo. So we've got our hands on this. They sent us a T-shirt each, right? A polo shirt each.
I feel like you're doing a lot of work to not say that I'm wearing it right now, because I'm wearing it right now.
I didn't realise that. You are wearing it right now.
Yeah.
Hello. Well, I probably should pay more attention to what you're wearing, because not long after Mack Weldon sent us these T-shirts, the polo shirts, sorry, we went to do our Richmond Kickers commentary for the USL, and we both, I think we were so excited because I really liked it when I took it out of the packaging. We both wore it to the commentary, and we got slightly teased for wearing the same shirt at the same time.
A little bit.
They were slightly different colours, but the design was very very similar.
We also wore them to a party the next weekend as well. Twinsies.
So, like Everton, the new Vespa Polo is a timeless classic that's recently been given a modern upgrade, because Everton have got their new shareholder, who I'll tell you all about later on today's preview. And last but not least, it's a grand old tee to play for.
Wow, that is both beautiful and terrible. So if you want to get your hands on any of those products that we just discussed, you can go to MacWeldon.com and get 20% off using the promo code TSS. And you can do that right now if you're so inclined.
It's MacWeldon.com. The promo code is TSS, 3 letters, TSS for Total Soccer Show, and you get 20% off of your order. We'll put the link to the Mack Weldon store in the show notes. Thank you to Mack Weldon for sticking with the Total Soccer Show and for sponsoring this episode.
And for giving us opportunities to dress the same on multiple occasions. So I have done 3...
My wife says that we need to text each other before we go to events.
I thought about doing it today. I chose not to. So I've done 3 Premier League clubs. I believe you've done 2. So you were up next, Mr. Grove.
Up next, it is that grand old team to play for. It's Everton Football Club. Big changes at Everton recently. So Bill Kenwright, the long-time sort of owner-chairman, there is now a 49.9% shareholder. He's the majority shareholder. He's an Iranian billionaire. He is putting money into this team. Also putting money into this team, Manchester City, who just bought John Stones for, I actually don't know the price, but it's an awful lot of money. I think it's around 50 million, right, in the end.
That sounds about right.
Everton are reinvesting some of that money, it seems, in Ashley Williams, right, the Swansea centre-back. Seems like he's going to be the replacement. Other big signings that have happened at Everton, Ronald Koeman is the coach, has replaced Roberto Martinez. They got him from Southampton. They literally doubled his wages from 3 million to 6 million. Another big signing, Steve Walsh. You know who Steve Walsh is? Steve Walsh, head of recruitment at Leicester City for the last few seasons. They've weirdly given him the job title Director of Football, which almost seems like this may be a Peter Principle thing where he's maybe been over-promoted, or that may be just a fancy job title for head of recruitment.
Yeah, or he could be promoted into a position in which he can operate well.
Maybe.
Isn't that also a possibility?
Yeah, but his skill set seems to be identifying talent that no one else has really identified, like N'Golo Kante and Riyad Mahrez and Jamie Vardy, going out and recommending buying those players, right? Director of Football is more sort of, we established the playing style for this entire team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
But either way, it's a great guy to sort of have as part of the club. But no real big signings so far this season. Like Williams is essentially to replace Stones, and you can argue whether that's an upgrade or not. So,
I mean, Yannick Bolasie, to reiterate, is apparently on the move as we speak.
Right, not confirmed yet. Yes. That would be an exciting signing. But the guy I am still and can't help being excited about is Ross Barkley.
Really?
Ross Barkley. Wow. I know I've been on the Ross Barkley hype train for about 3 years now.
More than that.
And it seems like there are people, every time the train stops, more and more people get off and not as many people get on.
Yep.
But Ross Barkley's still only, 20?
You're just heading in a worse and worse part of town.
Ross Barkley, I think, is still only 22. I feel like maybe the lack of structure under Roberto Martinez, in a weird way, wasn't great for him because it allowed him to just dribble in circles and go nowhere. Like, Roberto Martinez is like one of those parents that gave their children too much freedom and always told them they were the best. Do you remember all the stories of Martinez saying, Barkley's the best, he's going to do great, and letting him stay out till whatever time he wants, right? Whereas Ronald Koeman is coming in, and that kid always ends up with not having a sense of responsibility and not really knowing what to do in certain situations, which I think describes Barkley quite well. Ronald Koeman's coming in, he's talked about pressing and defending from the front, and I think he's going to have to teach Ross Barkley how to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So I am going for Ross Barkley to average at least 1 interception per game, which doesn't sound like a lot, but let me give you his stats from the last 4 seasons.
That's what I'm saying, wow, because I think it is going to be a lot.
His first season, 0.4. Second season, 0.3. Last 2 seasons, 0.6 and 0.6.
Okay.
Right? So for an attacking midfielder in an advanced position, you would hope for more. In a team that's going to press and win the ball back, it's got to be at least 1 interception per game from Ross Barkley, which will be emblematic of Everton's new playing style, being aggressive from the front, and Barkley's growing maturity under Ronald Koeman. This is an optimistic prediction, but that's my prediction.
Well, as the leader of the conductor of the Ross Barkley hype train, I guess it's what you got to be is optimistic.
You got to get people on board.
So
also, tickets are now half price.
There you go. Speaking of half price tickets and the opposite of optimism, let's talk about Hull City, shall we? So where should we start? Should we start with my prediction? Let's do that.
Okay.
I'm going to say Hull City will finish dead last in the table, which is not that surprising of a prediction, but I will say their manager will not win the sack race, quote unquote, which is to say that they're going to finish bottom of the table, but they will not have the manager who will be fired first.
Wait, didn't Steve Bruce just walk out on the team?
Yes, because
so
the season
do they have a coach yet?
They do not. I guess they're linked.
Who's picking the team?
They're linked with Mike Phelan at the moment as like a maybe interim manager, maybe just a caretaker manager, maybe a full-time manager. Mike Phelan, a former Sir Alex Ferguson assistant at Manchester United.
And player, don't forget.
Yes, but let's talk about why Steve Bruce is no longer there. So first of all, varying reports on this one, but roughly, it seems like they have about 13 fit outfield players to start the season.
Incredible.
Steve Bruce left. They think the tipping point was when Mohamed Diame was sold to Newcastle. Newcastle playing in the Championship this season. So basically, didn't do anything to make sure the player would stay around, so his release clause was met, and he opted to go to a team in the Championship. Not great. There have been no new signings for the senior team. With that, maybe with that in mind, Diame's billboard is still up. Like his billboard that says like "Welcome to Hull" is still there. Bruce said he needed 6 signings, including 2 strikers. Since then, 4 more players have gotten injured for a combined total of 21 months.
So Michael Dawson, centre back, I know he's injured.
Moses Odubaju, Alan McGregor, and Alex Bruce, the centre back.
Steve Bruce's son.
Yep. Yes. So, and I think it all led to, is it Tom Huddleston saying, it's been a funny old preseason on Twitter or something like that. So I think.
I also know there was an Arsenal player who was there on loan last season. Was it Akpom? I think was an important player for them who was on loan last season, who has now returned to Arsenal. So when Bruce said I need 6 new signings, he's ended up with like -6.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah, so it's just there in shambles. It seems like it's the owner's son is the one who's currently making the decisions.
Yes.
He doesn't really want to spend money, but he also doesn't like want to relinquish control. It seems like it's a whole big problem to the point where I think is it Hull City who are going after Chris Coleman? I'm pretty sure it's Hull City who's doing that. And I think they just really thought like, oh, we're a Premier League team, he'll jump at the opportunity. And instead both he and the Welsh FA were like, no, we're good.
I feel like the only person or anyone who is smart enough to rescue that Hull City team this season is also too smart to take that job.
Yep, pretty much.
Right? There's a level of awareness and protection of your own reputation that precludes you from taking that job because you know it's most likely going to be a disaster.
Right. And so with that, I think it's already kind of a disaster. And so anyone you bring in, you can't really have expectations that they're going to fix everything. And I think by the time that
season
manager
starts Saturday.
Right. By the time that manager inevitably gets sacked, someone else will have already been fired or walked away. That's my prediction. Hull lose, finish bottom, but their manager doesn't quote unquote win the sack race. Done.
I think their first game is against Leicester City as well.
Yes, it is.
Rough. It's rough going.
Not great. Not great for them.
Speaking of, I am previewing Leicester City. Obviously, reigning Premier League champions. I do not predict they will repeat. I think a really successful season for Leicester City would be Champions League or Europa League, to at least follow it up with like a top 6 finish, something like that. I think when we did the Community Shield preview, I was pretty in on Leicester as they've added all these pieces, they've got this playing style, and they've got like a kind of replacement for N'Golo Kante in Mendy. When I saw that game against Manchester United, especially with that Lingard goal, it became really obvious that you basically cannot replace Kante.
No,
right?
You really can't. Yeah,
like, Mendy is like similar in size and came from a sort of less glamorous French team, is a defensive midfielder, but even he is not N'Golo Kante. It's made me realise he's basically irreplaceable. Right.
And I would add, though, it's not just that Leicester haven't done stuff or signed players. I would say it's also that every single team that you would usually expect to be competing for the top 4 has improved. Yeah. There's not one team that I would say is weaker than they were last season.
True. And again, like to repeat some of the stuff I said in the Community Shield preview, if people didn't hear it, they have signed Ahmed Musa, who is kind of like a Vardy replacement in a way, like pacey, aggressive striker, may also complement him. And they've signed Kapuchka, the Polish winger. They had Damari Gray settling in last season. He'll be really exciting. So they have added pieces, right? They've also added a centre-back from Gijón. I've forgotten his name. I think it might be Garcia. But I really think the more I looked at that Community Shield game, that N'Golo Kante was absolutely key to making that whole Leicester system work. So even though I was at the time arguing they've got the system they can just plug and play and replace pieces, missing Kante means that a repeat of this Premier League winning performance is next to impossible.
Right.
He was the thing that made it happen.
Eesh.
Okay, so my prediction is that the Tinkerman label will return to haunt Claudio Ranieri, because I think
that's a good prediction.
First of all, the squad is much, much bigger. Right?
That is absolutely going to be a headline. You're absolutely right.
Last season, you could name Leicester City's starting 11. It was obvious what the starting 11 was, and they got really lucky with injuries, right? The only thing was maybe sometimes Ulloa and sometimes Okazaki. That was it, right? But it was mostly Okazaki and Vardy up front. So this season, you've got more players. I think they're going to struggle to be successful, so there'll be some moving around of pieces, and they'll be like, oh, is Musa a winger or a striker? Oh, maybe we can play Vardy right wing, and things will start to get less clear. Add in more games, because they'll be playing in the Champions League. All of a sudden, there'll be rotation. The Tinkerman headlines will return.
Oof. Oof, oof, oof.
Sorry, it's a very negative prediction, Leicester fans, but, you just won the Premier League, so
well, let's
keep smiling.
Let's move away negativity. Let's go positive, because when I think positivity, I think Jurgen Klopp's smiling face. Because it's Liverpool up next. This is my first... If Mike Phelan does take over a whole city, 4 of my first 5 teams were English managers. So This is my first non-English manager. And I think Jurgen Klopp has done some very interesting things. I think he really does have a leg up on so many other new managers because he's had that 8 months in charge where he's gotten kind of the lay of the land. He knows the squad a little bit more now, so he knows really what he's wanted to do, but he also knows how he wants to do it. So he's brought in basically the players he wanted to bring. So he's got Joel Matip on a free. He's got Sadio Mane, more on him in a second, Jorginho Wijnaldum, and Loris Karius. I don't know if you know him, but
goalkeeper?
who's now injured, broke his hand. And so Liverpool fans, not thrilled, because it was likely that Karius was going to be the starter. Now you're back to Mignolet. We'll see what happens there.
Things could be worse.
Yeah. Could definitely be worse. Could definitely be worse, except for the fact that their first 5 matches, 4 of those opponents would be Arsenal, Tottenham, Leicester, and Chelsea.
Yeah.
Not a great start for them.
Well, it depends what they do in those games,
true.
right?
This is true. But when I say he's adjusted his approach, Klopp, or like the way the team approaches things, one of the big things that I think is particularly compelling is that he, in the transition after Pep Guardiola left Bayern, Klopp pillaged Bayern to get their fitness coach and their nutritionist.
I did not know that.
So he's basically, I think, really trying to go about changing the way Liverpool approach diet and health and nutrition to try to get those players more fitting into the system. Because he did inherit a lot of kind of parts and pieces from different managers, a lot of Brendan Rodgers trying this and trying that, and the transfer board doing whatever they wanted to do, or the transfer committee or whatever it was.
A few things with the initial RB on it for Rafa Benitez, and a few things with the initial BR on it for Brendan Rodgers, and a couple of things with RH on for Wilson. Maybe some KD.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a Kenny Dalglish in there, I'm
so
sure.
He's scrubbing all that off, and everything's getting a big JK.
Yes, exactly.
And he's not joking.
And the biggest exemplifier of that for me is Sadio Mane, who was signed for £30 million, and he was previously pursued by Klopp when Klopp was at Dortmund. So it's basically a player that Klopp has been interested in for a very long time, and now he's got him. And I think that Sadio Mane is going to be Liverpool's Players' Player of the Season at the end of the year.
Why do you say that?
Because by all accounts, he has fit in perfectly into this team. He's already he knows exactly what Klopp wants because that's his background. It's high pressure, high tempo, run and run and run and run and run, but do so intelligently.
Yes,
that's what Jurgen Klopp wants. Right? Mane is going to play on either wing. He can play as a second striker, and he's willing to do all of those things. And so I think when you have that player who's competitive but friendly and is interested in being there. For example, when he was in Germany, Mane learned English. He wanted to learn English so he could move to England. That was his goal. So I feel like it's a player who wants to be there but is doing everything the coach asks of him, is very amenable to whatever's necessary. I feel like that's the type of player who blends in well with the team, then has strong performances, and thus becomes the Players' Player of the Season.
That sounds good to me. The thing I'm excited about with Liverpool is Jurgen Klopp has said, "This is my team now."
Yep.
Right? I think I've actually seen that quote from him. So he came in halfway through last season, got them playing sort of a recognisable gegenpress, but not always as effective as you would want it to be.
Right.
I think with the whole pre-season, a lot of players out that he doesn't want, like Balotelli training with the youth team, a lot of players in that he does want, Mane being the perfect example. And I really love that he has said, "This is my team." Because a lot of coaches come in and say, "Well, this isn't quite my team, but I'll try and fix it." And then they never actually mark the point where, now I own it, because you don't want to own it in case it then goes wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Klopp has been confident enough to say, "This is me now."
Man, all right, there we go.
I'm not a Liverpool fan in any sense of the word. I mean, I'm pretty neutral in the Premier League until Wolves get back there.
Yep.
I am really excited to watch Liverpool play this season.
Yep. I really was flirting with the idea of predicting that they'll be top 4, but there's just so many.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many variables that I'd rather go with something that I really firmly believe. And I do think Mane is going to have an amazing season for Liverpool.
I think 7 teams will finish in the top 4.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One of them will be Manchester City.
Ooh.
So obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, and even under that rock, you probably would have heard that Pep Guardiola
He's got rock access.
is the new Manchester City coach. They've been trying to get him for years and years and years and years, right? Some of his old Barcelona infrastructure was already there from like 2012, 2013. I think almost they've just been... I think Pellegrini was kind of a placeholder for what Guardiola did his Bayern Munich thing.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying?
It does feel that way a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Speaking of like initials, I'm sure Manuel Pellegrini was like, wait, what does that say PG on it? That's weird.
Well, and it doesn't help that, I mean, players, I forget who it was, have come out and said, like, I think it was Clichy maybe. It was like, we were just kind of thrown off that they announced it. And like we knew he wasn't going to be here anymore. It didn't really motivate us very much. And now we're motivated again.
So they are all set to go, right? And Guardiola, a bit like Klopp, he's got his players that he likes, right? So he has brought in Gundogan, I'm sure Klopp would have liked, but now he's going to play for Manchester City. Nolito, Leroy Sané, and John Stones. One person we haven't heard much about, Raheem Sterling.
We've not.
So here's my prediction, because I'm a little concerned. I think Guardiola is going to have a really positive effect on John Stones, and I think Raheem Sterling is going to be in trouble.
Yep.
So it's like a double prediction. Stones to become an England regular, Raheem Sterling to exit by January.
Yep.
Both of those things are going to happen.
Well, I think during January. But I know what you mean. Yeah. Because it does seem like he doesn't... you can already picture the frustrated gesticulations of Pep Guardiola on the sidelines as Raheem Sterling runs into a defender or fails to even just execute the game plan that Guardiola wants, that quick passing, get the ball forward, let's move. No, don't be ponderous and dribble. That's not... Okay, fine. Get off the field.
And to be fair, I do love Raheem Sterling. Like, there are a couple of seasons, especially for Liverpool in the early days, where he was just lightning and so exciting and had this like positive... And you could almost see him playing the Guardiola style. I feel like the fact that he's brought in Sané and Nolito, and you've already got David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne... it just spells trouble for Raheem Sterling.
And especially so because the other thing that I've been seeing a lot, which is the one... Speaking as a Man United fan, the thing that has made me more disconcerted than anything is how many young players I've seen linked or signed into Manchester City's academy or their U21 team, where it seems like he's already sort of starting to get that blueprint of, I want the youngsters coming through, learning my system so that they can just be promoted into the first team. And then that really doesn't spell anything good for Raheem Sterling.
Two other things. I think Yaya Toure. Remember all the rumours that Toure would be out as soon as Guardiola was in?
I was going to ask you.
It seems like all is good with Yaya Toure. And I can see Toure weirdly going back to that defensive midfielder role that Guardiola had him playing at Barcelona back in the day. No, I mean, because for one thing, Toure's got a little older, can't cover as much ground, might be suited to sitting a little deeper. Than he was happy doing previously.
It also feels a little bit like one of those situations when like Yaya Toure saw his opt out, which was Roberto Mancini at Inter Milan. Like that was like the obvious place. Like, oh, this guy wants me. I can leave any time. Oh, he's been fired. Okay, I'll stay. I'll do whatever you want. Like it's because Mancini's out. It's Frank de Boer is in at Inter.
Right.
So it makes me wonder if maybe Yaya Toure saw his options shrinking and was like, never mind, I'll be a team player now.
And he's already saying, birthday cake's fine. I'll get my own. It's all good. It's all good. One bonus prediction. I think this is all going to work out, Guardiola at Manchester City. Eventually, this is going to work out and there'll be a fearsome team. I think there'll be some stumbles along the way. I think there's going to be one embarrassing result early on. Because you remember like sometimes when Guardiola with both, I think with Barcelona and definitely with Bayern Munich, when he would go up against some other big teams, he would try some big tactical gamble and absolutely get his Catalan ass handed back to him with like a 4-0 or a 5-0. I think 7-0 over 2 legs was one of the Champions League results.
7-1 maybe? That seems like it sticks out of my head.
But sometimes it's a tactical gamble that doesn't pay off because he is committed to his philosophy of really open, expansive soccer, and sometimes he leaves holes at the back. I also think coaching Barcelona and then coaching Bayern Munich, that's two dominant teams in leagues where there are teams you can just go and beat. I feel like, and Guardiola knows this, I've heard him talk about this, in the Premier League, that isn't really an option. There's not one team where you can send out your reserves and be like, we'll take care of them. Everyone can, maybe with the exception of Hull City this year, every team can really hand you a result.
Also no winter break, which is also a bit of a challenge.
And I feel like there will be one time where there's just a really embarrassing result. Like Man City lose 4-0 to a team that isn't actually that good. And everyone's like, oh, this is a disaster.
I could see them struggling against a team like Liverpool, who like come in really well organized, ready to go, knowing their system. Pep maybe tries something different and they get smashed. I could see that happening,
So there you go. That's your Manchester City preview. And I think that marks the halfway point, the end of part 1 of our Premier League previews. Part 2 will be released tomorrow, Wednesday, so please keep an eye out for that. To close today's show, Taylor, we have a question. I've been saving this question for this Premier League preview. It comes from Dave W. Dave W. emailed us and said, I live in the United States and I want to go and see a Premier League game this year. Do you guys have any tips? What's the best way to get tickets? Are there package deals you'd recommend? If you could spend 5 minutes talking about this while we're still in pre-season, that would be awesome. We are still in pre-season, Taylor.
We are.
So let's talk about it. I will say before I saw this question and I did the research.
And you have an answer now.
I have many answers.
So is it left to me just to speculate wildly?
Would you like to? Or would you like me to just tell you what I found out?
I know that you can, for certain clubs, show up the day of the game and see if they have tickets available. A friend of mine did that for Manchester City against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and they had tickets available. So you can do that, but that's a bit of a risk, right? Because then that could be sold out.
Yes.
It might not fit your schedule.
And the key part of what you just said was in the Champions League. Right?
There
it is much easier to get tickets for cup games, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, than it is to get games to get tickets to Premier League games, especially the big Premier League games where it's big team against big team. All right, I'm going to share some knowledge then.
All right.
First of all, do not buy a ticket from a scalper.
Why is that?
It is illegal in the UK to scalp your tickets.
Now, hold on. Do you mean to resell tickets or to sell them at an inflated price or both?
Both.
Okay.
Even if you sell it for less than face value, it is still illegal to resell tickets.
Right.
In England, they're called ticket touts. It's just the same thing, ticket scalper. So if you buy the ticket from this person, you're probably not going to jail. The other person can be charged with a criminal offence. And the bigger risk to you as the buyer is that ticket can then be voided.
Right.
The other risk to you as a buyer is that ticket could be 100% fake.
Yep.
That could have been printed at home. Right?
Yeah.
So don't do it in person. Don't do it on Craigslist. Don't do it on eBay. Don't do it someone you meet over Facebook. They should not be doing it, and they know it. And there's a good chance if someone's doing something they know is illegal, there's a good chance they're also going to screw you over, basically.
Yep. And I think there's other stuff now they're instituting. It was a controversy at Manchester United where I think they're also doing identity checks as well, because it used to be, hey, I've got a season ticket, I can't go to this game, do you want my ticket? Sure. Now they're cross-checking to make sure it's actually you, and if it's not, then you have to give it back to the club, they'll buy it from you, and then they can sell it themselves.
It's called a ticket exchange.
There you go.
So yeah, a lot of teams have ticket exchange. So if you're a season ticket holder or you bought a ticket and you don't want it, you can contact the club, tell them, and they will then sort of reconnect it with someone else. So if you go to a club's website and you're looking for a ticket, you can sort of go through the ticket exchange yourself and look for tickets that are available. Here's the biggest thing with trying to get tickets for big games for big teams, like say Arsenal, right? The best thing you can do, this is the best piece of advice I can give you, is join the members club. Join the members club. There's a fee. It's normally £15, £20, so you're paying $30 or so to join the members club. That gives you access to tickets before they go on sale to the general public. So the things, obviously season ticket holders have their seat. Then members tickets are made available for you to buy on the website. Then things go on sale to the general public. But often the big games, general sale tickets, all gone. Or there aren't any for the big games. So that's the key number one thing to do. Join the members club.
There it is.
You can do package deals. Don't go through a dodgy looking website. If you don't recognise their website as a legit company, it is probably either overpriced or not a good package deal. The best thing to do is go with sort of really reputable travel agents like, say, Thomas Cook, something like that. They'll put a package together with hotels, maybe flights, dinner, somewhere. You know what I mean? The whole thing. Final thing, go to premierleague.com/tickets. For every single team, they will have a guide to buying tickets. And it will tell you if they have members clubs, how you do it, all that kind of stuff. Final thing, Taylor. You can do ticket resellers through official partners. So when you go to premierleague.com/tickets, you will see if that team has an official reseller, which will be like StubHub or Viagogo, one of those companies. And then you can go through that website to get tickets.
There it is.
I know that was a lot of information.
It was a lot of information.
There will be someone maybe thinking about going over to England. This will be good advice to stick in your pocket I guess. How do you do this? You have to replay this podcast, maybe? Yeah, before you go there. But the biggest thing is I don't want anyone to go over there and get themselves in trouble.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Always looking out for the little guy or the big guy, depending on the situation.
All size guys. All right, Taylor, thank you for previewing the first 10 Premier League teams with me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for indulging my long list of things to do and not do when buying Premier League tickets. Thank you to Mack Weldon for sponsoring today's show. All right, on behalf of Taylor and myself, it is goodbye from us, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday with part 2 of our Premier League preview.